What is going on, everyone? My name is Jason, and this is the iPhone 7. It seems as though every year the iPhone is able to generate some sort of controversy with every new iteration of iPhone Apple comes up with, and it's no different this time around. It might be because Apple hasn't changed the iPhone's form factor for 2 years now, a disappointing decision as most iPhones go through a design overhaul usually once every 2 years. Now you couple that with Apple's bold move of removing the headphone jack, and it's not surprising that some people see the iPhone 7 as a step back rather than a step forward. But if you're willing to look past these details, which I understand could be a lot to ask for, the new iPhone could be considered one of the best smartphones of 2016. Now there's no point in trying to argue that the iPhone 7 is a big upgrade in terms of physical design. Well, let me rephrase that. There's not a big change in the phone's physical look. In fact, it's almost impossible to discern an iPhone 7 from an iPhone 6 or 6S at first glance. The iPhone 7 is housed in an aluminum body that's almost identical to the previous two iPhones, which has always been nice and still is, but the form factor is getting stale, and you can't help but feel as though Apple should have done a better job of updating the way the phone looks. Now, they did clean up the antenna lines on the back of the phone, which is a welcome change, as I've never really been a fan of the awkward lines tattooed all over the older iPhone 6s. Apple also added two new colors, the matte black and jet black. And I love both colors, but the jet black basically requires you to cover up the phone with some kind of case, lest you enjoy a scratched up fingerprint smothered phone, which to me really defeats the purpose of going with that model. Now overall, the iPhone 7 looks and feels just like the iPhone 6 and 6S, and there's no point in really trying to argue otherwise. However, that doesn't mean that Apple hasn't made some significant changes to the phone. Just because you can't see any changes doesn't mean that they aren't there. To start, Apple has beefed up their phone's internal specs. The iPhone 7 is now using the new Apple A10 Fusion processor. It's a quad-core processor that consists of 2 high-performing cores and 2 low-performing cores that use less battery power during everyday tasks. Now, benchmarking results indicate that the iPhone 7 is likely the most powerful phone on the market right now, and performance is as smooth as you could ask for. Apps open up wicked fast, and there's almost no lag whatsoever, even when playing spec-intensive games. Games load up quickly, and I didn't experience any hiccups in gameplay, which was really nice. Now, Apple has always been able to produce stellar performance from their phones, and though you may not see a noticeable difference between the iPhone 6S, it's likely because the 6S is still a freakishly fast phone in and of its own right, making the iPhone 7's performance almost overkill for the here and now. Another big change you won't notice with your eyes is the new home button that's touch capacitive and doesn't actually move. Apple's Taptic engine simulates the feeling of a press, much like it does on the trackpads of their new MacBooks. And even though it does take some getting used to, it does a really good job in tricking you into feeling like you're actually pressing something. Now, personally, I like the new home button and all the subtle haptic feedback Apple has included in iOS 10, but because it is touch capacitive, you won't be able to press the home button with gloves on or with your fingernail, which will likely be annoying, especially in the winter. The iPhone 7 still has a 4.7-inch IPS LCD display, coming in a resolution of 1334 by 750. Now, this is a far cry from phones boasting a 2K or 4K display, but the screen is 25% brighter than the iPhone 6S and has a much wider color gamut, making the colors more vibrant than before. Look, I know it's not an OLED and the specs on paper are underwhelming, but the display in the iPhone 7 is really nice. It's bright, the viewing angles are great, and the color rendition is more accurate and natural compared to other displays that have better resolutions on paper. Now, it might be subtle, but there is a noticeable difference in resolution quality, making it arguably the best IPS LCD display on the phone right now. The battery on the iPhone 7 has gotten slightly bigger, now with a 1960 mAh capacity, compared to the 1715 mAh capacity on the iPhone 6S. Now, Apple claims this provides an additional 2 hours worth of usage when you pair the increased battery capacity and optimization of its new Fusion processor. Now, in my tests, I didn't notice any significant difference in battery life. Days of heavy usage, watching HD video, playing spec-intensive games, would prompt a low battery warning by the time I would be ready for bed, but I haven't had any major panic moments of needing to charge in the middle of the day if I started the day with a full charge, which is great. The battery should provide more than enough juice for regular day-to-day usage of the phone. One thing to note though, In my opinion, it's a shame that Apple hasn't done something to upgrade the battery in the iPhone, whether it be supporting wireless charging or quick charging by now, as its competitors have all practically evolved in this area. It still takes forever to charge the phone, and you always have to have a lightning cable handy, but hey, at least they're not exploding, right? Another major change you can't see from looking at the phone is the fact that the iPhone 7 is now IP67 dust and water resistant. Apple is able to accomplish this without compromising the exterior design of the phone, much like the Galaxy S7. So this theoretically allows the iPhone 7 to survive up to 1 meter underwater for about half an hour. Now, there are a bunch of iPhone water testing videos on YouTube that really push the limits of the phone's new water resistant capabilities, and my personal recommendation would be to still do your best to avoid water. With that being said though, you should have no problem with the phone should it drop in a toilet, be taken out in the rain, or rinsed in the sink, which, if you're like my sister, is quite comforting to know. Arguably, the greatest enhancement to the phone are the new cameras. The iPhone 7 has a 12-megapixel rear-facing camera with an f1.8 aperture with built-in optical image stabilization. Now, the camera is being praised as one of the best smartphone cameras of 2016, and pictures shot on the iPhone 7 are fantastic. Apple really focuses on getting you high-quality, natural-looking photos. And what I mean by that is that they focus more on color accuracy and limiting the use of software enhancement that make the photo look artificially more sharp or saturated. So if you do a side-by-side comparison of a photo taken by the iPhone 7 and, say, a Galaxy S7, you'll notice that the photo rendered by the iPhone may look a little bit more dull to the naked eye. And that's because it's a lot less processed, which gives the user more opportunity to edit the photo the way they want. Low-light shooting capabilities has improved a lot, as you can get some decent shots in the dark without it looking overly noisy. The iPhone 7 has a new quad LED True Tone flash, which is allegedly way brighter than the older flashes and does a better job at maintaining color accuracy when being used. The front-facing camera is a 7-megapixel f2.2 aperture shooter that now supports 1080p video. Apple finally got the memo that the front-facing cameras matter a lot as we're living in the age of the selfie and Snapchat, and has made improvements accordingly. Selfies come out great, but I do wish they had used a wider lens, which would help get more into the frame a lot easier. Video shooting capabilities have stayed the same with the iPhone 6s, but the major enhancement to video is the optical image stabilization, which was previously only offered in the Plus models of the iPhone. The stabilization works extremely well. Handheld video shot with the iPhone 7 is noticeably smoother and less choppy, and is a very nice addition for those who shoot video with their phones often. Now, the most controversial change brought in with the iPhone 7 is the removal of the headphone jack. Yes, the 3.5mm auxiliary input is now gone, and you'll have to use the Lightning earpods or other Lightning headphones, or if you want to use your traditional headphones, you're going to need to use the Lightning adapter Apple includes with the phone. Now, understandably, this is a huge turnoff for people who use their iPhone as their primary device for listening to music and only have headphones that support the traditional input. The dongle Apple includes works just fine, but it is annoying to carry around, it's easy to lose, and prevents the user from being able to charge and listen to their phone at the same time. Now, of course, you can opt to use Bluetooth headphones, which I think is Apple's objective here, considering its recent acquisition of Beats by Dre, which is great if you already have a pair, but will require you to go out and buy a pair if you don't. But it's not all bad news in the audio department, as Apple has added stereo speakers to the iPhone 7, a much needed hardware upgrade. The speaker at the bottom of the phone is still there, and an additional speaker has been added to the front of the phone, which fires through the earpiece. Though technically stereo speakers, it is a bit weird considering the asymmetrical firing of the speakers themselves, but they sound way better than the previous iPhones. Gameplay and media consumption is much more enjoyable, and this is definitely a step in the right direction when it comes to sound. Now, at the end of the day, I can say the iPhone 7 is a fantastic phone, and yes, this is the best iPhone available right now. But from an overall perspective, I can't help but feel let down. I understand the whole if it's not broken, don't fix it approach to product design, and the physical design of the iPhone for the past 2 years has been a success. And though it can be deemed a success for this version of the iPhone, I feel as though Apple could have done a lot more and chose not to. At the end of the day, Apple knows that it can still sell a boatload of iPhones that look exactly the same as the older models, and they decided to keep milking this cow until there's nothing left. And I even get that from a business perspective. But the deliberate decision not to offer the latest and greatest in what Apple is capable of, to me, really runs counter to the innovative culture that Apple supposedly is well known for. But that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments section what you guys think. That's it for this review. If you want more information on the iPhone 7, I'll leave some links in the description below. Now, if you like this video, leave me a thumbs up. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all my videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.